What's going on, guys? Welcome to the October Horror Show. Today we're going to be reviewing Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. So, Psycho was directed by Alfred Hitchcock in the year 1960, starring Janet Leigh as Marion Crane. Basically, she steals some money, and she is on her way out of town, and she stops at a motel, and you guys know Norman Bates, and that is basically the plot. The events arise from there. It's a pretty intense movie. This was
the first time for me seeing it, so it was kind of interesting. I kind of already knew what kind of goes down and what happens in the movie because it is a classic, the most classic movie, horror movie. But I already kind of knew that he kind of dresses up as his mother, and I didn't know the whole multiple personality thing though. I actually didn't know that that's how it was. I thought it was just him trying to be his mother, but it was literally her stuck because he makes a voice for his dead mom, and he creates this other personality
because he was so close with her.
Yeah, because he was so close with her, and then when she died, he kept taking care of her, and he was basically just he's playing the role of Norman and his mom at the same time. So it was technically his mom who was apparently jealous that Norman was kind of she didn't like this girl that was moving, and he was very fond of this woman who was
Marion Crane.
Marion Crane, yeah. And she, there's the whole shower scene thing. I hear the way they got her actually scream and actually convey that energy of really scared is they did some crazy stuff to actually make her legitimately freaked out. And it was intense overall. I didn't see the whole multiple personality thing coming.
So he gave his opening thoughts. So you want to give yours now?
Mine. Well, it's a great movie. One thing that definitely propels this movie above other movies is the outstanding acting. I personally loved Anthony Perkins' portrayal of Norman / his mother. Just for me, his performance is definitely it was a hit or miss for the movie if he didn't complete it. And just the looks on his face that he did,
his facial expressions.
Great, especially at the end of the movie where he's just kind of
runs
sitting there, and just all the different.
Which scene?
The very end when they're explaining.
Oh, you're talking when he's dropped in the blanket
there,
at the very end.
Yeah, and he's just looking
because he is his mother.
That
at
is
that point.
one of my favorite scenes, honestly. But then one thing that I do love about this movie is it takes a little bit of time to become a horror film. Right. It's just this story of, this woman going through all this stuff, and then she's just trying to get away. It's a whole nother story, and she just walks into this mess.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
events occur from there, and it's
because she was just trying to go and basically meet up with her boyfriend and have the money so they could go run off together, basically. But then she just stops at the motel for the night, and wrong place, wrong time. That's just. I too think that Anthony Perkins' Norman Bates is one of the. I don't even know if I would consider it a horror movie necessarily, but I mean, technically it has its elements. Yeah. I think he is one of the greatest horror icons ever. You see him, and if you know really anything about Psycho, you know that's Norman Bates that you're looking at. So yeah, I think the movie's great. It is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I think. Actually, this movie was the first movie to show its main protagonist die about halfway through the movie and just completely switch protagonists. And actually, one thing that I love about this movie is the seamless transition between you caring for Janet Leigh as she's trying to get away, which she's also kind of I don't know if you'd call her an anti-hero, but she is she's the person you're supposed. Yeah, she's not a good person, and so you're following her, and then it swaps to a person who you think is sort of, you know, decent, but then you're rooting for him to make sure he like gets away, you know? And that's one of those, it's one of the, I think, the movies that's captured it so well, that seamless transition of you're caring for a bad guy pretty much, like you're just, and you want him to get away.
It was definitely like one of the first movies ever to do something like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like you start rooting for the bad guy, like.
Yeah, and if I remember,
especially back then, that is very uncommon.
Well, yeah, and I remember right. If I remember right, I was reading that it wasn't actually accepted very well back when it originally came out. It wasn't really considered like a phenomenal movie, but over time, it's been one of those movies that people look at as a great movie, and now it's said as one of the greatest films of all time. So it's, but yeah. So I don't know. Do you have what else do you have to say?
I guess just the fact that it's kind of playing off the fact that he is the most like one of the, if not the most iconic like slasher slash like murder kind of like icons in horror, but again it's not really like horror. I guess it's more of like a suspense, especially for that time, how he just like pulled back the curtain. He's got the knife and it just
and actually I was talking a little bit about this earlier with, I think it was you. Alfred Hitchcock actually originally wanted that scene to not have the screeching violins in it. He literally just wanted it to be completely silent.
Yeah.
And you can actually look up on YouTube the video, one of the videos without the sound, and it's just it's like too brutal. I think that it kind of takes away from the terror. So
especially for the time
as well,
that would have been like, this is too much.
Yeah, and so I think that it was a great choice, because that also, when you hear that tune, you're like, Psycho. You know exactly where it's from.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely kind of set off a chain reaction of these kind of movies, like with like Halloween, and all these other kind of slasher movies in general. It definitely kind of like kicked off these new type of style of movies.
Definitely, because I like Psycho definitely. It was loosely based off of Ed Gein, who grew up. He was kind of an older guy in early 1900s, and he killed the girls or whatever, and actually wore their skin and stuff like that. That was actually loosely based. The character of Norman Bates was loosely based off of that.
That's crazy.
And which also spawned, like you said, Halloween. Spawned Halloween, which was also kind of loosely based off that, but he had
But he literally had like the mask and.
Yeah, so it's really kind of cool how Psycho. You know, a lot of people say that Halloween, in a sense, was the thing that spawned the slasher genre. Yeah. But I think if it wasn't for Psycho being made, we may not have gotten Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th. But definitely, it's Halloween's thing.
Especially as far as what I do believe that it did. Not necessarily just spawn from there, because it did maybe take a minute for it to catch on, but it definitely inspired so many movies as far as psychological thriller goes, because Halloween, those slasher movies, there's not much psychological stuff. Like maybe a little bit, but not to the extent.
It's pretty clear on what it's trying to be exactly, because there's a lot of depth to Psycho for sure. I mean, you have one of my favorite reveals of any movie ever, just for a plot twist, is this movie. I think the reveal at the end when Marion Crane's sister comes in, and then Sam Loomis comes in. Sam Loomis from Halloween, kind of funny. When they show up at the Bates Motel, and she sneaks into the house, and she actually goes downstairs and finds the body of the mother, and he's just been keeping her body like intact pretty much, and he brings her down to hide her down there, and then she ends up going down there and finding the body. And then just one of my favorite reveals ever is when you realize that she's dead, and you're like, wait a second, and then I don't know. Yeah. At this point, I think you kind of, if you know anything about the movie, you kind of know the twist for the most part. But I think I was like 13 when I first watched this movie, and I had no clue that it was even going to happen. So when he sees her, or when she sees her body, and then the music starts and then she turns around and all of a sudden Norman comes around the corner and he's wearing the gown and the wig. I remember just being like, what just happened? Like, it's so good. I think that it's one of my favorite reveals out of any
definitely
movie.
A twist that I wish I didn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Before I watched it.
Definitely.
I can only imagine like just the feeling of
It was insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, then again, I was like 13, so maybe if I was a little bit older, I might have been able to like pick up on it. But I don't know. Or if I waited too long to watch it, I would have already known the twist. So I'm glad I watched it when I did. I think it was like the perfect time. And actually, what's really cool is the Janet Leigh, who plays Marion. She was actually in Halloween H2O, which I believe is Halloween 7, I think. And Jamie Lee Curtis is her daughter in real life. So yeah, so in that one, she actually plays, I can't remember who she plays in the movie, but she is in the movie. And she like has this moment where she's talking to Jamie Lee Curtis and you find out her name is Norma, which is just a direct nod to Psycho. So I think that's really cool. And then obviously Sam Loomis in Halloween is the same name as her boyfriend in this. So that's, you can definitely tell they took inspiration from Psycho. So what would be your overall score for this movie?
My overall score, I would give it like a 9.5 out of 10. It's really difficult to actually find stuff that's actually wrong with this movie. But I feel like the only little tiny part of the movie is the fact that I feel like I don't need the scene where she's switching cars. I feel like that's not really needed. Just like, I guess, yeah, I just feel like that's really like it's a small thing. It's like a really small thing, but I mean, at the same time, it's like, it's kind of what makes me give it like a little bit off, but like I would even say like 9.9, but like I don't know, because it is a lot of the movie, the whole cop sequence thing with the police officer and stuff, but I just feel like you don't need to know that she's switching cars a lot of the times. I feel like it would, like, I don't know, anyway. But yeah, I would definitely give it like a 9.5 out of 10 just because like of how like iconic it is and just how much it's done for this slasher.
How much it holds up and stuff like that. Yeah. What do you think?
Overall, I would give it a 9.6.
Ooh.
Where did that come
Up
from?
you one.
I'm changing mine. It's a 9.7.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Nah. If any like complain about the movie, but yet it's not even a complaint really. It's just the fact of how much time we got to spend during the movie knowing of Norman's psychological deal with his mother. Just because the fact that you find it out at the very end, which isn't a bad thing, it's just, it makes me want to be like, oh man, I really wanted to, experience that more throughout the film.
Right.
But then as far as the story arc and everything, the layout, it makes sense.
Yeah, it had to be that.
So it's like, I can't...
You just wanted more.
Yeah, I can't make it like, oh, this movie sucks because of this. No, it's just something that I wish they had more of, because as far as when you first see him dressed up as his mother and stuff, you don't know it's till the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
Which is all right. It's just, I wanted like maybe just like a little bit sooner, have a little bit more commotion, just because there's like maybe just the one scene where he's actually dressed up. So that would just be a small minor complaint.
Yeah.
As far as the story and plot goes, it makes sense. I just would have personally liked more on-screen time of that.
Yeah, definitely.
But yes, I would stick with the 9.6, just because, not every movie is perfect. And just, maybe it's just kind of as far as movies of that time, I always feel like the endings of older movies are just kind of abrupt almost. So
they do kind of just close.
Yeah, it just kind of closes. So that would be a little minor thing as well. Is just a little more of a, even though it is one of the better endings to a movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that is my rating. What about you?
Sweet. So I think that I am going to give this movie a 10 out of 10. I think that I cannot find a flaw in this movie. I don't have any issues with it. I think personally I would give it a 10 out of 10. I think that, I think some people might find like, maybe their own little nitpicky stuff but I think the acting was perfection. I think that the writing was fantastic, And I think that it was just brilliantly helmed by Alfred Hitchcock. I think that he knew exactly what he was doing when he was making this movie, and just he created one of the most iconic scenes in cinema. I'd say you see the scene, you know exactly what it is. And obviously he didn't do the soundtrack, but the soundtrack is also amazing. I think that I don't know. I'm gonna give it a solid 10 out of 10. I cannot find an issue with this. I think that I can watch this movie multiple times, and when I watched it before this review, when we did, I was still on edge as it got more toward the end of the movie. I was still on edge, even though I knew it was gonna happen. I was still sort of on edge with it. Say it one more time. 10 out of 10 for me. I think that it is
10 out of 10.
fantastic.
Nice. All right.
So I think that wraps our review for Psycho. Next episode, we are going to be reviewing Creature from the Black Lagoon. If you liked our video, leave a like, press the little bell icon so you get notifications, and then go down to the comments, tell us what you thought of our video, join the conversation, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks, guys.